In this video, we're going to look a little bit at poster presentations and specifically what makes a good poster. When you're trying to think about what makes a good poster, it's a good idea to look at examples. So if you're already studying at a university, probably in some of the corridors and the hallways around the university, there will be examples of posters up. It doesn't matter if they're from your subject area, your field or not. It's really useful to go and look at them and think about how easy do you find them to understand? What do you like? What do you think is effective? And what would you change? So very kindly, a previous student has agreed to let me share her poster, which was very successful, so that we can talk through some of the features that make it a successful poster. Okay, so here's the poster. And first of all, just take a moment to have a look at it yourself and have a think about it. You'll notice that there's a couple of sections that have been blocked out at the top and at the bottom. That's where there was names that I've removed, but the student did give those. Also, this top left hand, we've got the poster number and AM, PM. That's an internal thing used at the University of Southampton for a particular assessment, so might not be relevant depending on the context you're making a poster. So have a look at it and what impacts you, just first of all. For me, something that really stands out is how neat this poster is. Colour, for example, makes a difference, and this student has used not a overly complicated range of colours. We've got this basic blue and white contrast, which is very neat. We've also then got colours here used in the graphs, but what we notice with those is we've got 3 different colours, so we can compare the three parts they're wanting us to look at, but also those colours are used consistently across the figures so that we can see which parts we can draw comparisons between. This might sound like a minor point, the colour, but actually it is really important because using too many colours or colours that clash with each other can actually distract the person trying to read the poster, sorry. It could make it harder to understand. So here the use of colours is clear, effective, minimal, but also deliberately chosen, for example, with those figures. We also might look straight away at the overall feel of the content. Does it feel complete? And I think we can say it does. We've got here background. So this is about a research project. Sorry, this is a student's research project that they're presenting on. So we've got here background, aims and objectives. Then we have the basic structure, parametric study, evaluation of metrics, comparative analytics, some evaluation, modelling accuracy, and structural difference in parallel MPPs, and then their conclusions. So really there's a sense of completeness in this, taking us through from the background. We can see then we're getting into different results, and then we can see where we're getting conclusions. This is really important. There seems like a nice balance between the different sections as well. I've seen many posters where, for one reason or another, a section has been missing. Maybe the conclusion section hasn't been there, or maybe the title hasn't made it clear. I've also seen sections that have been poorly balanced. So, for example, the background or introductory section, because someone has written it first, sometimes it has become extremely long. So it's become maybe half the poster. If your introductory section takes up half the poster, you're going to be very rushed on the method or on the results and the conclusion. So actually it's often the introduction, the method that takes up maybe 3/4 of the poster, which makes somebody rushed on the results and the conclusion. The balance that this student has got here, I think, is much better. You can see the results and conclusion is actually about half the poster. Unless there's a real reason, maybe you haven't yet got to your results, or or something. I think that's a good balance. Our results and discussing our results is such an important part of any research, so it should be given space on the poster. And we need to be careful that as we type up our poster, you know, from the introduction to the conclusion, we're not just choosing our content based on the space that we've got available. We're deciding what ideas we want to communicate, and then looking at how we can present those ideas in such a way to be able to fit them in. We also want to have a look at the overall flow. So we can see here we go from top left to right, then down a layer, left across to right, then down, and so on. Okay, this is a relatively typical structure. Structures that we might expect to see would be movement from left to right and gradually from top to bottom. It's not the only way. Sometimes people go completely down one column, then up and down the next column, but that gives you an idea. Okay then, so another important part of a poster is the balance of text to visuals. And I say again, personally, I think that this student has done that well. We have both text and visuals, but both of them are used with purpose. With visuals, so images, a couple of key things are: one, does the image have a purpose? Sometimes the temptation can be to put a picture on there to kind of, I don't know, make it look pretty, but the images you use have to have a purpose. And here we can see, you know, the results here have clear purpose. There are no images used without a purpose. When you're using things like graphs, the key thing is to make sure that all the information that you've put on there can be seen by the audience, and also can be quickly and easily interpreted by the audience, and give a launch pad for you to explain it. Now, because I've got this on I've put their poster on a PowerPoint slide, which you're then watching on a computer screen, the images might not be as clear as they would have been in person, but you can see again that idea of the colour and the trends, and even along the sides, the labelling. It's got what's essential to be there. It's not got lots of extra information and detail. They're not overly cluttered, these results. You can see that they're neatly labelled, but they're giving highlighting the main results. Likewise, if we look at the text, there aren't long paragraphs. This is really important. There's not time for somebody to be reading really lengthy paragraphs. They've used information going then down into bullet points. Okay, and this can often be a helpful and effective thing to do in the poster. It's worth mentioning, however, that there can be personal preference. So this background section here, how this is presented, personally, I absolutely love it. I think this is, to me, a really clear visual representation of the background information, saying wanting to combine two things to get another set of positive characteristics. I know I've spoken to, you know, in classes when I've got feedback from other people, students, what do they like, what do they not like? Again, some people love this, some people don't, and some people would rather it was a paragraph. So I don't think there's always a case of right and wrong on posters. There is also an element of personal preference. So don't feel that you have to do it in this style if you personally don't like that. But I do, because I think it gives a really clear visual representation, and it's something the audience could follow whilst listening to the person presenting and speaking about their research. Another thing is, I know some colleagues don't like the use of numbers to direct somebody around the poster, and would generally advise against doing that. I think, again, the key thing is we shouldn't use numbers to make somebody need to look at the numbers to find the way around the poster. So if we had number 1 here, number 2 here, number 3 here, number 4 here, that would be a bad use of numbers because it would be jumping around. I think in this case it's okay because the numbers are used in addition to the natural flow that is inherent. There's fairly normal flow to go left, right, and be working its way down the poster. So it might be a good principle to think numbers can be used in addition if you want to, but they shouldn't be used where you have an erratic order on your poster. So then, a few final thoughts. Keep going round and looking at different posters. It's really helpful to see what do you think works, what do you think doesn't work. You should be able to find some around your university campus if you're studying at university, or if not, online, there are often example posters you could look at. When you come to planning your poster, I would really suggest start planning it off the computer because you don't want the software to drive you into making decisions about what you include and how it looks visually. So start to plan off the computer. Think about what your key messages are, what you need to illustrate, and what you'll explain verbally. We may be looking at the poster today, but as you think about your actual presentation, I'd really suggest that you practice what you're going to say and record yourself, ideally with a video recording. Many of the things about presentations, for example, not looking at the poster, looking at your audience, we know them, but unconsciously we can make those mistakes. So it can be a really good idea to record yourself beforehand to see what you do. Also, poster presentations usually involve a time for questions. It's a time to find out more about your research or your poster and to explore those a bit further. It can be really valuable to try and predict what questions people might ask you and how you'll handle those and any difficulties that may arise in answering the questions.